And then we got to go back to Hyrum's name, and and now we had Daniel's name, which means the judgment of El, which means God. Okay, so now in order to understand what they're talking about, the three ruffians, you have to understand that in the story that Hyrum gets clubbed in the throat, side of the head, whatnot, bust his head, blood spill out over the checkerboard. So in order for somebody to understand how Hyrum will be raised, they have to first find the checkerboard. Then they would have to walk across the burning sands, meaning they would have to uncover the ruby glossed over floor of Set. It looks like it's buff red, but this is actually when the blood of Hyrum is spilled across the checkerboard floor. And you can't see the checkerboard floor anymore because you are no longer an initiate. Now you walking across the burning sands, the ruby red floor. It looks like blood red, crimson, but it's hard. So you're walking across this up into what is known as the King's Chamber, or the Queen's Chamber, which is between the two pillars. Now, all of this is your body. Ain't none of this externally outside of you. So when we're talking about raising Hyrum, you got to always remember when we're talking about erecting the temple, what we're talking about, which is going to be broke down when we go back to Solomon and the building of the temple. So now, in man, you have all of these things taking place in what they call the building of the temple. So when you, not to go too much into the Masonic doctrine, because I don't want to disrespect none of them brothers, but in there, they talk about the widow's son, which is another reference for Hyrum, and they talking about being raised in past, and they talk about the 32 degrees. And then you got the honorary 1 1/3. Now, all of these are relevant to the raising of Hyrum. And you got to keep in mind, the story is also the pyramid complex in Egypt. This is part of the raising of Hyrum, where you have your three ruffians or your three Orion pyramids, which from these three Orion pyramids, before that, you have something called the Sphinx. Now, here's the thing about the Sphinx. Everybody wanted to know the mystery of the Sphinx. The Sphinx was never a male. Now, the references for that is to go to the Greeks and look at the Sphinx. And everywhere you see, the majority of them are going to be female. What significance is this? This is necessary when we're talking about the master with the lion's paw, the master grip, because we got to raise Hyrum. Okay, so now, Hyrum is actually Hu Ram in Kemetic. Hu being the soul, Ram, R-A-M, or the ram. Okay, so now you start to understand that this is going directly to Baphomet. The Baphomet, or to go to Mendez, because it's talking about the ram. But don't be deceived, because the goat is not what you've been told. Because the goat is the Capricorn. And the Capricorn in the zodiac is the giver of abundance. So there's something here that we missing with this Baphomet that's been demonized before our face. And here's part of what it is. If you go back, just like we look at the Sphinx, you will see a ram, and looking like it's a procession of them in the complex. It's rows of rams. And these rams represents the deity Ra. Okay, so now you have Hu, which represents the divine breath of the soul, and then you got this ram. But what is the relevance of this? So this is where you get your name of Hyrum from. Now, everybody know that Hyrum is a master builder. So who are the master builders, or who is the master builder in Kemet or Egypt? Now we're talking about Ptah. Ptah being the supreme architect, the architect of the universe. So if Ptah can draw out the architecture of the universe, that means he know all of the dimensions. All of the dimensions. So in his other aspect is Khonsu, and he was the former of man. So now we start to see that this is not as mysterious as it was beginning to be in the minds of the people because of the deception. Okay, so now Hyrum means the soul in man, because the ram is representing of a male, because he have a male headdress, whereas the lion has a whole different representation, but you don't know that yet because of the deception. So how do we know what's going to take to raise Hyrum? We have to go over the legend of Hyrum. So they said that after these ruffians did all this, and later on, down the line sometime, that the master would come with the lion's paw and raise Hyrum with a master's grip. Okay, so what is this telling you? The lion's paw at this point tell me that this has to do something with either the Sphinx on the ground or the Leo in the sky, or both. Okay, so now in understanding the decoding of a religious doctrine, you have to know the stellar signs. So this is why they villainize astronomy and astrology, because if you can't read the stars, you will not know what you read in the books. Now, before we go any further, we're gonna be jumping all over the place. It's gonna be for a second. All right, excuse me for that. Okay, so we're going to be going through some mythologies, and I'm going to broad stroke over it just to get to y'all can understand how Hyrum is raised. Okay, so the Leo constellation or the Sphinx or both is necessary component for raising Hyrum. It's probably the most necessary component for raising Hyrum is the Sphinx. The next one would be the three ruffians would have to have a identity. They would have to be known. So then, in order for the Leo or the Sphinx to raise Hyrum, then Hyrum would have to be able to identify who the three ruffians was, because he would have been there to see the three ruffians. He would have knew who they were. So now we got to resolve the lion issue with the lion's paw, and we have to resolve the three ruffians. We touched on the checkerboard, but I'm gonna tell you where it's at and how it applies to the ruby floor set and the walking of the burning sands in order to reach the temple, in order for Hyrum to be raised, because it's necessary component in raising Hyrum to know what that is, what it is telling you. Okay, now, so now we take these and we go over other prophecies and legends, and we start to match them up around the world, and they start to tell us a story. And this is why everybody has to think that they have the right religion or spiritual doctrine, because there's pieces to the puzzle in science, math, history, astrology, astronomy, all of it. Even philosophy, when they're talking about the Ein Sof, Sophia, the divine wisdom, the wisdom of the mother. Okay, so when we're looking for Hyrum to be raised, we have to be looking for Hyrum to be somebody who can understand all of those things. So Hyrum got to be able to identify the three ruffians, what took place, basically what happened. And so now, if Hyrum was raised, he would be able, hold on one second, y'all. If Hyrum is raised, Hyrum would be able to tell you what it is all about. Okay, now, so the first thing Hyrum would tell you about the story of Solomon is it says that Solomon fell in love with a jinn. Now, that's very important. The name or the title of a jinn. So then you go through all of the demons. Now remember this, all of the demons that Hyrum or that Solomon is controlling. Now, if you look at the demons and look at what they do, these are not a physical form demon. These are birth defects. These are birth defects. So the first thing that if Hyrum was raised, he would be telling you is it's based on genetics. If he's telling you it's based on genetics, it's going to tell you that this is why all of the religions had their blood rites. Because the spilling of blood was necessary in order to bring the vibration down low enough for it to be enough anarchy in order to enforce Solomon's building of the temple. Now, when they go into the making of a man into a mason and they talk about knocking off all of the rough edges, and they're talking about polishing him up and allowing him to stand as a man, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about genetic cleansing. And this is what the staff on the serpent is. This is the DNA chain. The staff being the middle pillar. The DNA chain, the red and the blue. Now we're talking about what Du Bois called a warring soul. The conflicting bloodlines within the individual. These conflicting bloodlines. This is a mammal bloodline and a reptile bloodline. It's your Rh positive in conflict with your Rh negative. But in order for humans to live in harmony, they have to live mammalian. They can't live reptilian. And this is what the red and the blue conflict is all about. In the large colors as being the red lodge, the blue lodge. So now, when we're looking at Hyrum, he's going to tell you that all of these ones that Solomon was given control of. Now remember, Solomon means the soul of man, right? Hyrum is the one who's building is the one commissioned to build the temple of the soul of man. So if Hyrum is commissioned to build the temple of the soul of man, and everybody is waiting on this temple to be raised, because if you look in Israel, them fake Jews ain't waiting for Jesus, they waiting on Moses, because they under the impression that Moses is going to restore Israel and raise the temple, never knowing that Israel is also an Egyptian word, Isis, Ra, and El. This is all about judgment. So now it takes us back to the holy drama, or the war, or as they call it, between Horus, Set, and Osiris, where the son avenged the father. But that's not really what this is all about, because it's a little bit different. But Hyrum, being subdued, would know that the temple that he's building is a temple of man, within man, because Hyrum would know the blueprint, because he the one who has the designs. So if he know the blueprint, this is the first thing he's going to tell you. When you analyze, or now you get your geneticists and scientists to analyze the demons that Solomon controlled, and you will realize that the majority of known birth defects are controlled by the demons that was under Solomon's control, which takes us back to the 200 fallen, because every one of those demons has what they call a frustrating angel. What angel frustrates you or complicates you, or what angel removes this affliction. So now we're talking about unraveling the DNA chain and pulling out the defect. So where did this whole conflict begin? How did we have to worry about fixing some genetics? And that goes back to Adam, the fake Adam, that is actually was a Gulam. And a Gulam is a Kabbalistic creation. The particular one that they called in the Kabbalah, the Adam Kadmon, was the false Adam. The Adama, which was the ruddy red man of the earth, that they called the wild man of the earth, that was not the Kadmon. The Kadmon had no melanin and had no means of processing higher intellectual function nor experiencing higher spiritual function. So he was a rain man. He was autistic. So this is why they trying to poison all these babies now. They trying to remind y'all what the punishment was about, the condemnation was all about. And so Hyrum would be able to tell you about the genetic mess that was made, or as Elijah Muhammad called it, Yaqub's grafted devil. Because Hyrum would know that Yaqub, being the underminer, was trying to overthrow somebody. Now the story is told as Cain killed Abel, Esau got undermined by Jacob, and Ishmael, who was about to be sacrificed in the place of his brother Isaac. Was about to get the birthright in the place of his brother Isaac. But then his mother had him kicked out the house. And so when Ishmael was going to be sacrificed to the Most High by Abraham, which means the heart of the black god. Ab is a Kemetic word, mean heart. Ra is that soul light, and the Chem is the black. So he wasn't originally Chem, meaning that it wasn't sealed with a chemical. The black chemical that they used to seal the heart chakra through the incarnations to keep you from experiencing that real powerful divine love, because we had to walk in a low vibrational frequency and function. And too much of the high energy, we would have woke up. We would have all woke up. So when Hyrum is raised, he'd be able to tell you about the genetic mess. And they called it Yaqub's grafted devil. And from this, they also are going to tell you about, and they're going to talk about Lucifer. Now, all of this is relevant to Hyrum, because the Lucifer in the Bible that they villainize as the fallen one in Isaiah is actually the one that they call the Christ in the New Testament. The son of the bright morning star, as they call it in Revelations and Isaiah. The bright morning star is Venus. And so now it's starting to point in a direction. If the bright morning star that they call Lucifer is Venus, and Venus is a great female deity in historical record, then I'm going to take care of some business. Let me finish this and then I can come talk to you, okay? Okay. Okay, well, you just got to sit here and be quiet, okay? Okay. All right, so what would Hyrum know about the three ruffians? So I can get back to daddy duties, I'm going to have to speed everything up. And I'm going to have to brush stroke a little wider. So Hyrum would identify the three ruffians as being Enlil, Enki, and Anu. And Hyrum will also tell you that what you see as Nebuchadnezzar being condemned is actually Set defeating Osiris, because it's the judgment. That's the holy drama. And Hyrum would tell you that the sojourn of Nebuchadnezzar as the wild man. Now notice they got him eating grass because they want him to be depicted as a wild man, a goat. But remember, his kingdom was going to be restored to him. Okay, so now they got Hyrum in this tomb of sorts. He's locked in this sarcophagi. And where is this sarcophagi at? Now, when you look at the pyramid structure and the king and the queen chambers, the Great Pyramid has a deep shaft that goes into the water. And it goes all the way down, and then they find what they call the tomb of Osiris. And the tomb of Osiris is huge. But if you do what they call the orientation, which means the measurements of something in relation to something else, the orientation will tell you that the tomb of Osiris rests at the same